Millions of people are, voluntarily subjecting themselves to freezing cold water every single morning.
Yeah, you see it literally everywhere now.
Right, like all over your social media feeds, just people shivering under the shower head, entirely convinced that this daily jolt is fundamentally upgrading their biology.
Like it's somehow making them tougher or, perfectly optimizing their recovery.
Exactly. But we really need to ask, what if the science says they're doing nothing more than hitting like a temporary refresh button?
Well, that's the classic difference between a true systemic overhaul and just a fleeting sensation.
Yeah.
I mean, we all want the magic bullet for recovery, especially when you're putting your body through the ringer. But human physiology rarely offers permanent upgrades from just, a 10-minute intervention.
Which brings us to the core mission of our deep dive today. We are investigating the actual multi-system physiological effects of this massively popular recovery hack.
The infamous hot and cold contrast shower.
The very one. We want to strip away all the wellness influencer hype and ask the hard scientific questions here.
Right, like, do these contrast showers actually rewire your physiology?
Or do they just provide a temporary sensation of relief?
And to get real answers for you today, we're exploring a rigorously detailed 2026 article, and the title alone gives you a really good sense of the academic precision we're dealing with.
Oh, it's a mouthful.
It is. It's called Contrast Heat-Cold versus Thermoneutral Showering in Trained Combat Sport Athletes, a randomized field trial of recovery outcomes.
And we absolutely have to credit the research team behind this because the work is stellar. The authors are Magdalena Hagner-Derengowska, Robert Trybulski, Joanna Kruk, Filipe Manuel Clemente, Cyprian Olchowy, and Karol Pilis.
Yeah, and that was published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine.
Right. And what's great is the level of scientific clarity they bring to this topic. It's deeply refreshing.
Oh, definitely. They aren't just sending out a quick survey asking athletes like, hey, do you feel peppy after your shower?
No. They are mapping the biological response across multiple interconnected systems.
Exactly. They really want to see what's actually happening under the hood.
So if you're listening to this and you've got a grueling training schedule, or, maybe you're just someone trying to bounce back from a highly stressful week at the office.
Which is most of us, right?
Totally. Understanding the actual biological mechanisms of thermal contrast therapy can save you a lot of time. It can really help you manage your expectations before you turn that shower dial all the way to ice cold.
For sure.
Let's frame our deep dive like this. Is this daily shower routine acting like a permanent software update that, upgrades your body's base operating system?
Or is it just a quick reboot that clears the RAM so your computer doesn't crash today?
Yes, the software update versus the RAM reboot. So let's look at how the researchers tested that exact tension.
Right, because to figure out which one it is, we have to look at their methodology.
And they took a really comprehensive multi-system approach, examining 4 distinct biological domains.
Yeah, and they didn't just test this on your average weekend gym goer either.
No, they used 60 Tier 3 and Tier 4 highly trained combat athletes.
So we're talking practitioners of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, karate, mixed martial arts.
People who are systematically putting immense mechanical, metabolic, and neurological stress on their bodies, like 3 to 5 times a week.
Yeah, and combat athletes are just the perfect stress model for this kind of field trial.
Because of the physical toll.
Exactly. I mean, they experience blunt force trauma, intense cardiovascular strain, and really high cognitive load during sparring. So if a recovery intervention actually works on them, you know it's robust.
That makes total sense. So the researchers divided these 60 athletes into 2 groups.
Right.
The intervention group underwent a 10-minute contrast shower protocol, and they had to do this within 5 minutes of finishing their training session.
And the temperature cycling details are super critical here.
Tell them about the cycles.
So they alternated 1 minute of hot water, strictly measured at 38 to 40 degrees Celsius, with 1 minute of cold water at 13 to 15 degrees Celsius.
And they did 5 full cycles of that.
Yep, 5 cycles, starting with hot and crucially ending with cold.
Okay, so that's the intervention. And the active control group, on the other hand, they took a 10-minute thermoneutral shower.
Right, so their water was kept at a lukewarm 32 to 34 degrees Celsius the whole time.
And using an active control like that is just a brilliant study design choice.
It really is, because it isolates the thermal shock variable, right?
Exactly. Both groups are getting the exact same mental routine of a 10-minute post-workout shower. They both get the act of washing off the sweat, the downtime in the locker room, all of that.
Yeah, the only actual difference is that brutal temperature swing for the intervention group.
And they did this after every single training session for a full 4 weeks.
But the study design has a second phase that makes it really exceptional.
Right, the washout period.
Yes. They followed that 4-week intervention with a 2-week washout period.
And a washout period, just meaning all the experimental showers stopped completely.
Everyone just goes back to their normal lives.
And this is how we answer that software update versus RAM reboot question, isn't it?
Exactly. Because a washout period reveals if any of those physiological changes actually stick around once the stimulus is removed.
Like, if it's a true software update, the benefits should persist even when you aren't doing the cold showers anymore.
Right. So to measure those changes, both during the 4 weeks and after the washout, they looked at a dashboard of 4 domains.
Okay, let's break down this dashboard. What's the first one?
First is autonomic regulation. They used a polar H10 chest strap to measure heart rate variability, or HRV.
Got it. And the second?
Second is perceptual recovery. They used total quality recovery, or TQR scores, to measure how the athletes actually subjectively felt.
Okay, so mind and nervous system. Third?
Third is endocrine function. They tracked systemic stress hormones by looking at morning salivary cortisol.
Makes sense. And the fourth domain?
And fourth is microvascular reactivity. To measure blood flow, they used a technique called post-occlusive reactive hyperemia.
Or PORH.
Right, and they measured that using a laser Doppler.
Okay, I have to pause you on that last one.
I figured you might.
I mean, I have to.
Okay.
Because, wait, we're talking about combat athletes.
Yeah,
These are people who use their arms and legs to grapple, strike, and block.
very true.
So why on earth did the researchers measure blood flow by cutting off circulation and using a laser on their great toe?
Look, on the surface, measuring the toe of a boxer sounds completely counterintuitive.
Right. You'd assume they'd measure the forearm or the shoulder, muscles
Right.
actually doing the work and taking the damage.
Exactly. But the researchers aren't trying to measure localized skeletal muscle function or like acute inflammation in a battered arm.
Oh, okay. So what are they looking for?
They're trying to measure systemic cutaneous microvascular reactivity.
Meaning they want to see how the whole body's surface blood vessel network reacts to a stressor, rather than just checking on like a localized bruise from a kick.
Precisely. And a laser Doppler on the toe is a standardized, highly reproducible way to measure that systemic response.
How does that protocol even work?
Well, it involves using a pneumatic cuff on the leg to occlude, or basically block, the blood flow for a few minutes.
Okay.
Then they release the cuff and use the laser to measure the rush of blood back into the tissue of the toe.
Wow. Right.
Yeah, because if they measured a forearm that had just been battered in a kickboxing session, local tissue damage, micro tears, and localized inflammation would completely skew the vascular data.
Right. The swelling from getting punched would ruin the baseline.
Exactly.
Ah.
The toe provides a clean, neutral window into how the underlying vascular hardware is functioning.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. You absolutely need a neutral site to test the system's baseline.
Yeah.
So now that we have this whole dashboard of metrics, the HRV for the nervous system, TQR for the mind, cortisol for the hormones, and the toe laser for the blood vessels, let's look at what happened at the end of the 4-week intervention.
Let's do it. Time point 1.
Right. What did the dashboard show?
2 major systems on that dashboard showed distinct measurable wins for the contrast shower group over the control group.
And the autonomic improvements, they were striking.
They really were. The athletes in the contrast group saw a significant drop in their resting heart rate. It went down 2.0 beats per minute.
That's a solid drop. And their vaguely mediated HRV indices, specifically metrics like LNRMSSD and RMSSD, they went up.
Yeah, and we should probably unpack what those acronyms actually mean for the listener, because HRV is often misunderstood.
Very true. Walk us through it.
So RMSSD essentially measures the time difference between successive heartbeats. It's looking at the beat-to-beat variance.
And a lot of people assume you want your heart to beat like a perfectly steady metronome, right? Like
Yeah.
perfectly even.
Exactly, but counterintuitively, high variability is actually what you want.
It's a good thing.
It's a very good thing. It indicates that your autonomic nervous system is highly responsive,
Okay.
because the autonomic system has 2 main branches. You have the sympathetic, which is your fight-or-flight stress response.
The gas pedal.
Right, and the parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest recovery state.
The brakes.
Exactly, the brakes. So when your RMSSD goes up, it means your parasympathetic system, your brakes, is actively and efficiently responding to your environment, slowing the heart down, and driving recovery.
So the intense cycling of hot and cold water basically forced their nervous systems to hit the brakes and shift into a deep recovery mode.
It powerfully modulated their resting cardiac state. It's quite impressive.
In parallel to that physiological shift, the athletes actually felt significantly better.
Yes, the subjective data backed it up.
Their total quality recovery scores jumped 0.61 points higher than the control group.
Which means they consciously perceive themselves as more recovered, less fatigued, and, more ready to hit the mats for the next session.
Okay, so a win for the cold showers.
Well, this is where the authors introduce a crucial caveat that demands some critical thinking.
Oh.
The psychological perception of recovery beautifully parallels the physiological data from the HRV monitors. But we really have to factor in the expectancy effect.
Oh, you mean the placebo effect?
Exactly. Think about it. You cannot blind a participant in a hydrotherapy study.
No, obviously not. They know they're standing in freezing 13-degree water.
Right. They know they are receiving an intense, highly touted recovery intervention, and the control group knows they are just taking a pleasant, lukewarm shower.
Okay, wait, let me push back on that a bit. Are you saying the athletes were effectively tricking themselves into feeling better? Because a drop in resting heart rate isn't a placebo.
No, it's not.
That's a hard biological fact measured by a chest strap.
Absolutely. The HRV data is objective, undeniable biology. The heart rate genuinely dropped, but the perceptual score, the TQR, is highly susceptible to contextual factors.
I see.
Because the brain is a prediction machine. If you suffer through a freezing shower every single day, your brain expects a return on that painful investment.
Like, I suffered, so this must be working.
Exactly. Simply knowing you are doing a rigorous, evidence-based protocol can genuinely reduce your perception of pain and fatigue.
Wow.
The feeling of relief is real to the athlete, but the cause of that feeling is a complex mix of biological heart rate modulation and psychological expectancy.
Okay, so checking our dashboard, the engine temperature is genuinely running cooler, according to the HRV.
Yes.
And the driver is reporting a much smoother ride based on the TQR scores.
Right.
But does this mean the underlying engine mechanics are actually upgraded? Like, if the nervous system is calming down, does that relaxation penetrate deep enough to change our structural stress?
And that leads us right to the cortisol levels.
Let's talk about the endocrine system then.
Well, the transition from the nervous system to the endocrine system reveals a massive disconnect in this study.
Because the morning salivary cortisol, which is, a major systemic stress biomarker, it showed absolutely no statistically clear intervention-specific change.
Nothing.
The ratio of change between the freezing contrast group and the lukewarm shower group was virtually identical.
And if we look at the microvascular data, the blood flow reactivity measured at the toe, we see another disconnect.
What happened there?
The blood flow reactivity improved for both groups over time.
For both groups?
Yeah. The brutal hot and cold showers offered zero incremental microvascular benefit over a regular, comfortable shower.
Okay, I have to ask on behalf of anyone listening who takes these cold showers.
Go ahead.
If the athletes are genuinely feeling better, and their nervous system monitors show they are resting better with a lower heart rate, why wouldn't their stress hormones drop in tandem?
It's a great question.
Aren't the nervous system and the endocrine system intrinsically linked?
They are linked, yes, but they operate on entirely different timelines and have completely different response thresholds.
How do you mean?
Well, think of your nervous system like the electrical wiring in your house.
Yeah, electrical wiring.
You flip a switch, the light goes on or off instantly. It fluctuates rapidly in response to acute, short-term shifts in your environment.
So a blast of cold water just flips the electrical switch.
Exactly. But the endocrine architecture, like your basal cortisol production, is much more like your home's plumbing system.
Oh, the plumbing.
Right. If you want to change the foundational water pressure of the whole house, flipping a light switch won't do it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Cortisol requires sustained systemic changes in your overall load to shift significantly.
Because morning cortisol is dictated by this massive, noisy web of factors.
Highly noisy. I mean, we're talking your circadian rhythms, your sleep quality the night before, your overall psychosocial life stress, even your cumulative training load over weeks and months. The minor physiological effects of a 10-minute shower are so easily masked by the simple fact of whether the athlete got a good night's sleep, or maybe they had a fight with their partner.
So unless an intervention massively shifts your systemic baseline over a long period, a quick shower just isn't going to rewrite your circadian hormone release.
Exactly. You can temporarily soothe the electrical wiring without fundamentally altering that deep plumbing pressure.
That analogy makes perfect sense. But wait, what about the vascular blood flow?
Ah, the toe.
Yeah, the toe data. Why didn't the extreme hot and cold contrast force the blood vessels to adapt more than a normal lukewarm shower? I always thought cold water was supposed to act like a pump for your blood.
Well, this comes down to the physical mechanics of the intervention itself. A shower only delivers surface thermal stimulation.
Right, it's just water hitting your skin.
It changes the temperature of the skin. But what it completely lacks is the hydrostatic pressure of an immersion therapy, like actually sitting in a deep ice bath.
Hydrostatic pressure. So we're talking about the actual physical weight of the water compressing the body from all sides.
Exactly. Think of your blood vessels and the metabolites in your tissue like a tube of toothpaste.
Okay.
When you submerge yourself in a tub of water, the sheer weight of the water exerts inward pressure on your limbs.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right, that pressure physically squeezes the toothpaste tube. It acts like a mechanical pump, shifting fluids, compressing blood vessels, and actively aiding in metabolite clearance from the extremities back toward the core.
And a shower just changes the temperature of the toothpaste tube without actually squeezing it.
Bingo. No matter how cold the shower is, it relies solely on thermal cues to trigger vasoconstriction and vasodilation at the surface level.
It completely lacks that deep mechanical squeezing effect.
Right. So given that, it shouldn't be entirely surprising that the systemic microvascular adaptation wasn't significantly different from a normal relaxing shower.
Because both groups were just washing off, cooling down naturally after training, and going about their day. So we have a short-term electrical nervous system boost
Yep.
and a strong psychological perceptual boost.
Yes.
But we completely missed the deeper plumbing of the hormonal and vascular markers.
We did.
Which brings us to the most crucial phase of the study. The ultimate test of our software update theory.
The washout.
Right. What happens when the 4 weeks are up and the athletes undergo that 2-week washout period with absolutely no contrast showers?
So this is time point 2, and the results here are pretty definitive.
What happens?
At the end of the 2-week washout, the autonomic and perceptual benefits completely vanished.
Wow. So the HRE dropped back down to baseline?
Back to baseline. The resting heart rate went back up.
Yeah.
And that subjective feeling of recovery, the psychological boost, that faded away too.
So the physiological effects proved to be entirely transient.
Entirely. The authors actually explicitly warn practitioners and coaches against claiming, quote, persistent physiological adaptation based on this data.
So contrast showering is a short-term readiness tool.
It is not a durable physical remodeling of the athlete's body.
Okay, so if you're listening to this and you have a massive presentation tomorrow, or you're in the middle of a heavy training block.
Or you just desperately need to bounce back to survive tomorrow's workout.
Exactly. Then a contrast shower is a fantastic evidence-based tool to have in your toolkit.
For sure. It will acutely lower your heart rate, it'll push you into a parasympathetic recovery state, and genuinely make you feel more ready to perform the next day.
But it cannot cure systemic fatigue.
No, it acts as a temporary override.
It's not a substitute for the foundational pillars of recovery, right? Like getting 8 hours of sleep, eating properly, and actually managing your overall training volume.
Right. It modulates your acute homeostatic state for a few hours, or maybe a day, but it does not induce long-lasting training-like adaptations in your vascular or endocrine systems.
So the verdict is officially in. It really is just a quick reboot, clearing the RAM. It's not a permanent software update. The machine runs perfectly smoothly for the next session, but the base code hasn't changed at all.
The data from this field trial makes that abundantly clear.
To sum this all up, contrast heat-cold showers are a brilliant, scientifically validated tool for an acute parasympathetic and perceptual reset.
They cool the engine and make the driver feel great in the short term.
But they aren't physiological magic. They won't permanently alter your stress hormones or upgrade your vascular system without the continuous daily application of the stimulus.
Exactly. It's a valuable tool provided you understand its specific transient utility.
Well said. And there is always more nuance to learn by digging into the source material directly rather than, just relying on a headline.
Always.
Which is why we strongly encourage you to read the full article, Contrast Heat-Cold versus Thermoneutral Showering in Trained Combat Sport Athletes, in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine.
Yeah, you can look at the exact temperature cycling data, the specific statistical breakdowns of the HRV metrics, and the entire methodology for yourself.
And please, Remind yourself to follow the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a future deep dive into the science that actually impacts your life.
Definitely.
But before we wrap up today, let's go back to that expectancy effect.
Oh, the placebo component of the perceptual recovery.
Right, because it leaves you with something pretty fascinating to mull over.
I think so too.
If a significant portion of the perceptual recovery benefit actually comes from simply believing that the grueling cold is fixing you, does knowing the science actually diminish the benefit?
That's the real question.
Right. Now that you know the relief is mostly transient, doesn't rewrite your hormones, and is partially psychological.
Will that freezing shower still work for you tomorrow morning?
Or did we just glitch your RAM reboot?